Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alex Quest Daily Show. Hasn't been very daily lately, has it? I apologize for that. Before we get into anything fun, please like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, and spread this word of mouth. It's been a while since I've been back, but I think today's show is pretty jam-packed, and it's really important that I talk about what I'm going to talk about today. So I think it's going to be a really good one. If you want to find us on socials, go search the Alex Cuesta Show anywhere you can find the social, and we shall be there. Now, today, Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022, by the way. So for those keeping score at home, what today's date is. So we're going to get into some fun stuff. We are going to continue with the Biden COVID tracker because they have still yet to rescind their pandemic status. So until the pandemic status is rescinded, I will continue to do it. Now, there's good news about this. The numbers are still looking relatively good. Even with this new scare, they talked about the BA2, which is the Omicron variant, which is quote unquote 50% more contagious, but shouldn't lead to more hospitalizations. And then they talk about the Delta Cron and all these new variants that are creating and what happens when people get infected twice with two different ones and all this other stuff meant to scare. But the proof is in the pudding with the statistics. So let's talk about them. When we last spoke, that was the 17th. We had 79,586,964 cases. And in terms of deaths, we had 967,817. High numbers, obviously. We've been at this for over 2 years now. Fast forward to today, the 22nd of March, 2022, 79,734,788 cases. That's an uptick of 147,824 over 6 days. That's a 6-day average of 24,824 cases. For a country of almost, 300 and whatever it is, million people, 324, I don't know what the actual census is, but we have over 300 million people. That's not awful for a highly contagious disease. There's a significance here, though, because I was prepared to do the show yesterday. Things happened. The number of cases stayed the same from yesterday to today. There was 0 reported cases from yesterday to today. I don't know if that's a glitch in the matrix, but if it's not, that's awesome because there was an uptick in deaths. Now, in terms of deaths, we're at 972,684. That's an uptick of 4,867 over 6 days. That's a daily average of 811. Now, granted, these are terrible numbers. There's death, there's disease. That sucks. It always sucks when any of this occurs. But in terms of where we were at the peak of this, where we were seeing 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 dead, when we were seeing 300,000 cases a day, we're at a much better point. They refuse to call this an endemic. They refuse it. We're treating it like an endemic in every which way, but they refuse to give up the power. That has to tell you something. And as we sit, Joe Biden has a lot of death on his ledger. Joe Biden has a lot of disease on his ledger. The guy, again, I repeat as always, the guy came in saying he had a plan. What was his plan? Right now, it seems to enrich Pfizer and Moderna. That seems to be the plan. If you listen to Justin Trudeau, probably close to almost a year ago now, flat out saying we have a 3-year deal with Pfizer, so you guys are going to get the boosters. He gave away the game for the West. And I can't think America's doing much different. They probably paid one of these companies or both of them. Well, considering they paid him a ton of money to create this under Donald Trump with warp speed, I think we're kind of beholden to them. And that's why they're pushing for all these boosters and why they're trying to get it to the kids so they can get another 100 million or whatever it is boosted. So it's really fucked up, the whole situation. But overall, we are getting much better. There really is no need to track this like I am. Like, to be quite honest, this is absolutely tedious and frivolous at this moment, but I am being petty as fuck because this is exactly what the leftist media did to Donald Trump the whole time when they had this all on their trackers and their tickers and putting everything on Trump, all of this on Donald Trump. So I am returning the favor and putting this all back on Joe Biden. And we are going to continue to keep track of it until they lower this into an endemic and force every state essentially by proxy to stop everything that they're doing, especially New York City, where it came down the pipe today. that New York City is going to make a special exemption for athletes and entertainers with the private sector mandate. As a Brooklyn Nets fan and a Yankees fan, that makes me happy. Kyrie Irving is going to be able to play at home. Aaron Judge and Anthony Rizzo is going to be able to play for the Yankees. But still, fuck you, Mayor Adams. There's no other way to say it. There's no other way to say it. Not only is he letting illegal citizens vote in elections because he's a douchebag, he's also still putting on mandates for private sector. He is fucking the middle class with this. There is no other reason to continue to do this. None whatsoever. He is the worst politician in the country. I'm standing by that. Eric Adams is worse than Joe Biden, and he is the worst politician in the country. And the guy hasn't even been in office for 6 months. He's terrible. Absolutely terrible. But we're going to move on from that because I'm done being angry at that. There's a few things that I want to talk about before we get to the actual thing I'm reading today. I'm actually not reading from an article today, so it's a little different, but it's really important what I'm doing. But a few things for everyone to watch out for that's going on. First off, the biggest headlines. There's a Supreme Court nominee hearing for Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was nominated by President Biden. We're on to day 3 today, and there's been a lot going on. One of the things that we've heard a lot of is the Democrats being a whole lot of bitches about the way the Republicans are questioning and going after Jackson, and a lot of the things that they're saying and doing and putting her on the spot. And it just is mind melting and mind blowing that they have the absolute balls, whether you're a man or dude, you have the balls to sit there and ask anybody to fucking play nice with you after the bullshit that they pulled during the Kavanaugh hearings and the bullshit that they pulled during the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. Granted, the Coney Barrett hearings weren't half as bad, but you flat out called a now sitting Supreme Court justice a rapist. And that is something that continues to go through in the mainstream, where you hear a bunch of dumb fuck leftists constantly calling Kavanaugh a rapist when Christine Blasey Ford was obviously lying. There is no Me Too. There is no believing fucking survivor. She didn't survive anything. She was a paid liar. That is flat out the truth. Christine, I'm not afraid to say it. Christine Blasey Ford is a liar and was an operative and was used by the left to try and smear Kavanaugh. I think they knew Kavanaugh was always going to get in, but let's just muddy up his name a little bit. And Amy Coney Barrett, they tried to give her shit and basically tell her she was stupid because she was a staunch Christian. And being a staunch religious person to the left is the worst thing in the world because they're a bunch of atheists and agnostics and Marxists that believe in the fucking religion of wokeism and Marxism. So there's no reason why Republicans should play nice at all. They should grill Jackson. They should try and destroy her character, which she has very little as it is, as you could see when you watch these. I'm not going to kind of opine on it. They touched on the fact that she's very light. Apparently, her record is very light on sentencing child porn pedophiles, essentially. She's light on pedophiles. She refused to define woman because she's not a biologist. And my role as a judge, she's sitting there very condescending, and which is typical of an elitist on the left. She is obviously an elitist. And no, they should not go soft on her at all. They should destroy her name. Ketanji Brown Jackson should have her name dragged through the mud every chance they can get. Because you know what? If the left wants to set the standard, then the right should up it and up it and up it. There's no more being nice. There's no more being the moral eagle. There's no more, well, we should be better and above that, which is a line that they have said forever, and it never works. So you know what? No, fuck that. Go after her. With that being said, watch all this stuff at your own, at your own warning. There's a ton of theater that goes on. A ton of disingenuous theater of people just trying to gain points, just trying to make sure that they have something for their reelection to put on tape. That's a lot of what's going on right now, whether it's on the left or the right. You have Cory Booker trying to grandstand, who's one of the dumbest motherfuckers in Congress. He proved that when he ran for the president, but he's trying to grandstand and doing all his dumb stuff, his quote unquote Spartacus moments because he's a moron. But you'll see it everywhere. You see it from Ted Cruz. You'll see it from a lot of the prominent people on the left and the right. And it's a lot of theater, but there is some good stuff in there. And there is some revealing stuff in there. So definitely, I recommend going to watch it. I think it's good for the country to see who is more than likely going to be deciding cases on the Supreme Court, because it is very rare that Supreme Court justices don't get pushed through. I hope some people on the left realize that she's not a good candidate and come over and block her, but we shall see. Another thing to look out for, I got a few more things. I'll try and get to them quickly before I read, because I don't want to make this episode too long, even though it's been a while, so it can be long, but I'm not going to do that. Joe Biden may go back to allowing drilling on federal lands. This is big for multiple reasons. One, the climate activists are going to eat his fucking lunch if he does that. And he's already not good on the far left. They're not a huge fan of him. So we'll see what goes on there. But it's really big because speculators will start to roll down the clock if they allow just new contracts to be opened up, so that new federal grants can be given to these companies so they could start to really go and start prospecting the land. Because a lot of it is, yes, they get the deals for this land, but they have to prospect it to see if there's any oil to be drilled. And that costs a lot of money. So if there could just be new grants given so that these companies can go out and prospect and try and find new sites to drill, that's going to be huge for speculators. And that's going to help the prices. Makes you wonder what's happening here, because they know, listen, everyone from high heaven knows that the way that the climate change people preach about oil is bullshit. If you really know climate, if you really know oil, fossil fuels, renewables, you know that the way that they talk about fossil fuels is straight up bullshit and it's agenda driven. So we'll see what goes. We'll see if the Keystone Pipeline's next, because Biden's desperate for a win at this point. They're going to get slaughtered in November. They are, he is likely to lose the presidency if this even continues in a fraction of a way. The left will have no chance. I don't care if it's Trump, if it is DeSantis, if it's Kristi Noem. I don't care who runs for the right. It'll be similar to this situation where the leftist media, the massive leftist media, is not going to be on whoever the right side. Obviously, they never defend anybody on the right, unless it's Kinzinger and Romney, who are both on the left. But it's going to be interesting to see, because there's not going to be much to defend from Joe Biden. He's been terrible. So we'll see. We'll see if he opens up Keystone next to try and get a few wins. Who knows? Because now he's hurting the pocket of his base too. So we'll see. Another thing, the Ukraine war is still raging on. Russia's still unable to take over Ukraine, which I'm a little surprised about. I thought that they would actually have it by now. I don't know what's stopping them. They've started to do a lot of the things. I give credit to the Ukrainian people and their military for their, sheer will and determination to not give up. I have questions about President Zelensky. He's getting so much praise. He's so brave. He is doing a good job leading the country. I'm not going to get wrong, but the man's a propagandist. He is doing everything he can to begin World War III. Everything. Asking for a no-fly zone over and over and over, asking for immediate entry into the EU and NATO over and over and over. He knows for a fact that if those things occur, good chance that World War III breaks out. He's a savvy dude. He understands that. And with the way he speaks, as he threatens Russia, saying the things that we got, it'll make World War II if Russia doesn't come to their knees. And the guy is a propagandist. He's scary. Zelensky is, I'm not going to say he's, Putin invaded. Putin's a bad guy. Zelensky's defending his turf. But Zelensky's no fucking angel. And Ukraine as a nation, their oligarchy is no angels either. It's an extremely corrupt nation. The people don't deserve this. The Ukrainian people don't deserve what's going on. But don't think that the upper brass of Ukraine are all innocent. They're not. And another face on that, China is fucking with everybody. They are flip-flopping what it looks like. I've said that China's been on Russia's side this whole time. They have been supporting Russia. I don't think Russia goes in without Chinese support, because China wants to take Taiwan. So they're obviously going to want support, and they're going to offer support to Russia because they'll want support back. That's just how this is going to work. What's crazy is that the West is banking on China to join them and condemn Russia. They are hoping that it happens. They're waiting on bated breath. And it just goes to show you how fucking weak not only the United States is, because we know Biden's a weak individual, but just how the whole West is. The West is extremely weak. when one of their enemies, China, they are an enemy. They are an adversary. They're not an ally. When they're waiting with bated breath on one of their enemies to essentially stop a conflict by condemning it, it's embarrassing to say the least. It is an embarrassing look for the West. The weakness of the West is on display and it's pathetic. Lastly, before we get to the main crux, quick article, New York Times buried the lead. They did admit that the Hunter Biden laptop that the New York Post broke before the election, about 6 months before the election in 2020, exists. They said that there were emails on a laptop that was dropped off in Delaware to a repair shop. They authenticated the laptop. They said that they got information from emails exchanged on there. Now, this is big. New York Times, Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, Kamala Harris, down the fucking line. Every single one of these people, 51 former intelligence agents, officers, people in high position, came out and said this is Russian disinformation, that the laptop exists and what was said on the laptop exists. There was a lot of lying going on to get Joe Biden as president. There was a lot of shit that went on. There was an article in Time magazine talking about the shadow underground to get him elected. So it's real that there was a shadow group of elites and powerful people working their ass off to make sure Trump doesn't win. So the denial is, it's in New York Times blood to lie. They're a shitty company. They're not the paper of record. They're the paper of defending death and disease and destruction when they basically stuck up for Russia with the gulags and were not admitting to the Holocaust. Look into those. You can. And also with the Holodomor in Ukraine, the Holodomor was another thing that they denied. So New York Times has a bad track record on anything. They fucking suck. No one should read it. But they've been denying it. Now, I will couch it with this. Their admission of the authentication of the laptop does not automatically prove that everything that the right said is on it is correct. There's a lot of people on the right, prominent people, slam dunking on this, saying it's correct, we're vindicated, this and that. It doesn't necessarily vindicate all that. Obviously, I don't think you need the New York Times to vindicate shit because, again, I'm not a fan of the Times. I think they suck. But you can't use what they said about authentication to then undeniably say what you said is also true about it. So I couch it with that. It looks bad. It looks terrible. It looks like what everything on the right has been saying is true, and that the emails they claim to have read, the things that they claim to have had, do exist, are from the laptop. But at the same time, you have to couch it with it also doesn't confirm it. So, but New York Times sucks. They're the worst paper. They are right there with Huffington Post about being one of the worst, absolute worst papers in the history of this great country of ours. So we are going to go into the main crux of the of our show today. And our show today is a very, very, very interesting one, because if you have been on social media and haven't been under a rock for a long time, you have undoubtedly seen that there are people touting around saying the Don't Say Gay bill is bigoted. Florida's Don't Say Gay, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Don't say gay. They're wrong. Bigots are against LGBTQ, the rallies and all this type of shit. So many people going behind it. And, I read the bill. They obviously haven't, because this is a typical case of people reading a few things from sources that are very skewed on the left, watching things very skewed on the left. And don't get me wrong, they're skewed both ways. Whatever you read is skewed extremely to one side or the other. So take both with a grain of fucking salt. But in this case, where you have the actual primary document to read, there is no reason not to be educated on this. The bill is not named Don't Say Gay. That is made up by the leftist media and the power players in politics to denounce this bill. And in nowhere in this bill does it ever mention the prohibition of using sexual slurs and gay and all that type of shit. It doesn't exist. They've lied to you to make a catchy slogan, which is what they do. They're good at that. And you are good at being a fucking sheep. Stop it. So what I'm going to do today, is I am going to read the Parental Rights in Education bill, which is a Florida bill. What's the number here? HB 1557. And it is a legislation that is written. It is a 7-page bill. 2.5 pages is the summary. So you don't even have to read that. That's not the act. That's it's a summary of what is said in the bill. So I'm not going to read that. I am going to start on page 3, and we are going to read this bill. And I am going to talk about what these things mean and tell everybody so we can finally clear up that this is not the fucking don't say gay bill. And anybody that says that is stupid and doesn't read and is just a sheep and just believes what they see and hear. Again, I'm not saying go reading things from the right is going to automatically be correct. They're all skewed. They're all slanted. Anyone that just flat out comes out and regurgitates what they read is a moron, left or right. But and listen, I get it sometimes in these gigantic federal bills, none of us have time to read 2,000 pages. It's asinine. There should be a law against how many pages are allowed to be in a bill. This is a beautiful bill. It is 7 pages long. There is not a ton of legalese in this bill. There is some, but there is not a ton of it. So let's read the bill, because let's clear some shit up about the fact that this is not the don't say gay law. This is exactly what it is called, Parental Rights in Education bill. So let's go ahead here. Again, there is a 2.5 page summary about what this bill is. That's a lot of legal, jargon and stuff. You can go back and read that. And again, all you have to do is search Parental Rights in Education bill. It's under the flsenate.gov sessions bill. You'll see it there, House Bill 1577. Click on it. You can click the PDF and you can read it yourself. Not difficult to find. So let's go here. Be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Florida. Section 1, paragraph C is added to the subsection 8 of section 1001.42 Florida statutes to read 1001.42. Powers and duties of district school board. The district school board acting as a board shall exercise all powers and perform all duties listed below. Under student welfare. 8 over here is student welfare. So let me just break that down if that got confusing real quick. All it's saying is that this bill is going to tell the school boards what they must do. So this is basically a message to school boards how they need to shape up with what they are allowing to be in the curriculum or the type of things that they're allowing to go on in their classrooms. So this is a direction to the boards of educations. Let's go here. Section C1. In accordance with the rights of parents enumerated in SS 1002.20 and 1014.04, which I don't know what those are. There are obviously other bills that are probably much older and talk about the rights of parents, yada, yada. Adopt procedures for notifying a student's parent if there is a change in the student services or monitoring related to the student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, and the school's ability to provide a safe and supportive learning environment for the student. I'll read the paragraph. The procedures must reinforce the fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding the upbringing and control of their children by requiring school district personnel to encourage a student to discuss issues relating to his or her well-being with his or her parents, or to facilitate discussion with the issue with the parent. The procedures must not prohibit parents from accessing any other student's education or health records created, maintained, or used by the school district as required by S 1002.22, Section 2. Okay, so what does that first paragraph say there? That first paragraph says, now you'll hear people saying they have to out kids as gay. If someone comes out as gay, bi, trans, whatever, they are forcing people to, the educators and the counselors to out these kids. Not true at all. Not true at all. The key here is if the rights of the parent to enumerate procedures, notifying a student's parent if there is a change to the student's services or monitoring related to the student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, and the school's ability to provide a safe and supportive learning environment for the student. That is a key sentence. Because what that is saying, and what people might not understand is, if a student comes out in any sort of way, if they're curious or if they have, they have a different sexual orientation, And if for whatever reason that is going to have to cause that student to have his education style change, if they cannot learn in the typical way that is being taught in the class and needs to be altered for that student, that is something that falls under the ADA normally. And they have to get an IEP. That is something that a parent needs to sign off on, because that is a big deal. That is an absolute change to how the kid is learning. And that is not up for the school to decide to switch this shit up. So all that is saying that if you need to change the way you are teaching these kids for any of those reasons, mental, emotional, physical health, or well-being, and if the school cannot do it safely in a good environment for the student, then the parents must be informed. That is not a bad thing. These are kids. We acknowledge that kids under 18 are not adults. Let's keep going here. Section 2. A school district may not adopt procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying a parent about his or her student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, or a change in related services or monitoring, or that encourage or have the effect of encouraging a student to withhold from a parent such information. School district personnel may not discourage or prohibit parental notification of an involvement in critical decisions affecting a student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being. This subparagraph does not prohibit a school district from adopting procedure that permits school personnel to withhold such information from a parent if a reasonably prudent person would believe that disclosure would result in abuse, abandonment, or neglect, as those terms are defined in section 39.01. So this is another gigantic paragraph, because it did talk in the other paragraph how if a student comes to a counselor or a teacher with one of those issues, that they should encourage them to talk to their parents about this, to get their parents involved and potentially facilitate having the parents involved, which means that they can be present. They can act as an advocate for the students. They're allowed to facilitate it. If their students are afraid of telling their parents, they can be the middleman. This paragraph here is saying that a school district isn't allowed to do any sort of form. So we've heard, and if you pay attention to media on the right, the left is never going to talk about this, but if you pay attention to media on the right, there is certain forms, and it happened the other day. I forget where it is, but there was an elementary school that was doing a seminar on LGBTQ, and in it is saying what we talk about in the classroom stays in the classroom. That is a way of prohibiting kids from telling their parents about shit. And so what this is saying is they're not allowed to do anything that is going to tell the kid they are not allowed to talk to their parents about this stuff. And they are telling them that they are not allowed to do anything that is going to alter how the kid is taught or observed. This is big, because we saw a lot of shit going on when everything went to Zoom, when we went to all Zoom learning. It became a big deal when parents were able to see what the teachers were saying and hear what the teachers were saying. And parents were getting concerned. And then the teachers were like, well, they shouldn't be paying attention anyway. They shouldn't be allowed to listen to my class, which is bullshit. Yes, parents do not have the teaching degree, but that is not your fucking kid. You cannot just say whatever you want and do whatever you want with them. So again, in that paragraph, the district personnel cannot discourage or tell a kid that they cannot talk to their parents about big decisions involving mental, emotional, physical health, or well-being. So that falls under whether or not they're coming out, whether or not they're, confused or conflicted about their sexuality, or if they want to change the way their body looks. They're not the teachers are not allowed to tell the kids, don't tell your parents I got you. They're not allowed to say that this is an inclusive and caring environment. And if you want to change your name and your gender just in this classroom, we'll allow it. They're not allowed to do that in Florida, which is amazing and great, because there are places that are fucking doing that and then telling the parents that you need to change this kid's name because that's how they feel in this room. It's happening and it's wrong. Now, at the end here, they make sure that they protect the kid. This is not just a bill. They're making this bill out to be a bill that attacks homosexuality, that attacks lesbians, that attacks trans, that attacks bi, and it doesn't do any of that. The end of this paragraph is huge. If a teacher, a counselor, someone from the school district that has these procedures in place believes that a kid's well-being is under threat for coming out to their parents, They can tell them, don't tell your parents, we will figure this the fuck out. They're not telling teachers to not be involved. They're not telling counselors to not be involved. If they know the parent, if they've had parent-teacher conferences, if they've interacted with the parent, if they've talked to the kid enough, and they understand that their parent is bigoted or has a history of doing something negative or something like that, or has just a hunch that something might go wrong, it could make a messy waters, don't get me wrong, because they could be completely wrong. But at the same time, they're allowed to have that judgment. In this bill, in this law, in the quote unquote, don't say gay bill, in protecting parents' rights in school, they are allowing the school district representative, the person working with these kids, to say, you know what? I don't think you're safe if you come out to your parents. I don't think you're safe if you tell your parents you're confused. I don't think you're safe if you say to your parents that I'm a girl in a boy's body, something like that. They're allowed to say, listen, we'll work this out. We will figure this out. Don't tell your parents yet. We're going to make sure you stay safe. So right away in these first two paragraphs, they want to protect the parents' rights to be parents of their kids, but they're also protecting the kids' safety. This is all about student safety, mental, emotional, physical, all that. This is all about student safety and parental rights to be parents. Let's keep going here. Section 3. Classroom instruction by school personnel of third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through third or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. This is a big part for people, because people are pointing to this and saying, see, they're saying that you can't say gay in the classroom. You can't talk about gender. You can't talk about sexual orientation in the classroom. They're not allowing it. They're leaving out the fact that it's only from kindergarten through third grade. Let's talk about the fucking ages from kindergarten to third grade. On the low end, if you're a younger kindergartner, there's a chance you're 4, most likely 5. So a 5-year-old can't talk to a 5-year-old about sexual orientation or let's see the exact words, sexual orientation or gender identity, a fucking 5-year-old. Okay. And it goes up to third grade. Third grade, 8 years old, maybe on the old end, 9 years old. So again, 8, 9-year-old, you can't talk to them about sexual orientation or gender identity. These kids don't give a shit about any of those things. You know when they care about it? If you bring it up as an adult. If you start to bring it up to them, especially if you're a teacher or somebody they look up to, of course they're going to start to care about it. Because kids really like school for a long time. They don't start to like it kind of in middle school when they're allowed to be more on their own. Elementary school, primary school kids still fucking like school. And they look up to their teachers. They think their teachers are awesome. So if you're a teacher and you're an activist teacher trying to indoctrinate your kids and grooming them, you fucking garbage can. But if that's what you're doing, then of course they're going to start to sit there and be interested in sexual orientation and gender identity. You're doing it. You're grooming them to think this way. So this is not allowing groomers and pedophiles to groom and pedophile 4 to 9-year-old kids. Now, this is allowing them to start this in 10th grade, not in 10th grade, in 4th grade. They are allowed to start teaching this shit in 4th grade under Florida law. So again, young age, 9 years old, up to 18 in high school. People are making this law seem like they're not allowing people to say it or teach it or do anything. 4th grade, they're allowed to start teaching this by this bill. That's fucking crazy to me. This should be prohibited until they're 12 years old. Puberty doesn't really start. Like, kids are flowering younger. I get it. They're starting to really develop and hit puberty younger and younger. 12 years old to me is more than young enough. But no, they're allowing that sooner than I would like. And again, age appropriate and developmental appropriate in students in accordance with state standards. That could be a crux, because if you don't agree with what the state standards are, number one, you're probably a pedophile or a groomer. That's the first part. But number two, that's understandable. If you think that maybe they're being a little bit too much of tight asses, or on the other side, if you think they're being too loose, there's going to be wiggle room there when it comes to the state standards and arguments. And that's why we elect representatives and we let them decide this type of shit. But this is not saying that they're not allowed to teach this. This is saying they're not allowed to teach it from 4 to 9-year-olds. Nothing wrong with that. And if you think there's something wrong with that, you're fucking disgusting. Period. You're a gross person. You're gross. If you want to do that in your home with your kid and indoctrinate them and fuck them up for life, you could do that. You can absolutely do that. I have 2 daughters. They're 2 younger daughters. My older one has asked questions. Absolutely. Listen, they all ask questions. They all sit there and they wonder what it's like to be the other sex, because when they start to go to school, they start to interact with the other sex. So they really get curious about it and they want to know and this type of things. And they think that, that's a boy thing. And maybe I'm a little bit boyish, and they don't understand sexual orientation or gender identity. They just see it and they take things at face value. My one daughter, both of my kids love playing with cars, love playing with, big dump trucks and excavators and shit like that. Am I automatically going to assume that maybe there's a little bit of boy in them and maybe they might want to make a change? No, it's fucking normal. My God, like the shit that they're going through about this bill. This episode's going to take forever because I'm going to rant about how dumb these people are that are calling this the Don't Say Gay bill. Let's move on to the next section, section 4. Student support services training developed or provided by school district to school district personnel must adhere to the student services guidelines, standards, and frameworks established by the Department of Education. So what that is they can't bring in any outside shit that is against the guidelines, standards, and frameworks from the state, from the Department of Ed. So you're not allowed to, unless it's approved by the Department of Ed. And this is not just the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed can't just approve shit, which is going on a lot, where the Board of Ed takes in this queer studies, gender studies bullshit and just starts being, it's okay, let's just go ahead and do it. All this critical theories bullshit that they start allowing. And what this is saying is, no, if the Department of Ed of Florida does not allow this, if it is not a teachable thing, you're not allowed to do it. Understandable. Follow fucking rules. Don't just go out and do your own nonsense. But again, we are dealing with activists here. That's why they're mad about it. Because if you know about Paulo Fieri, if you know about, who else is another guy? Henry Drew. If you know about these types of guys, I don't know if his name is Henry Drew. I might have fucked it up, but that they were big advocates of starting this type of shit young, preaching critical theories young. So it's no surprise that they're angry about not being able to teach kindergartners through 3rd graders about queer theory and gender theory. That's what this comes down to. Let's keep going. Section 5. At the beginning of the school year, each school district shall notify parents of each healthcare services offered at the student's school and the option to withhold consent or decline any specific service. Parental consent to the healthcare service does not waive the parent's right to access to his or her student's educational or health records, or to be notified about a change in his or her student's services or monitoring as provided by this paragraph. So again, in the beginning, if they offer counseling services for anyone that's, curious or questioning, if they have a protocol for things like that, if they are, whatever they do in that way, parents must be informed up front, and they're allowed to opt out. If you're super religious and you're just like, no, I don't want to learn about sex that early, too young for me, opt out of that sex ed course in 4th fucking grade. They should be allowed to do that. And that's protected here. And it's also protected that they can see everything that's going on, all of the records. So if this was taught behind their back and they were given a worksheet in class, all this shit's supposed to be saved. They should be able to see it and they should be able to know. And if things are going to change, they should be notified. If they're going to bring in a special speaker to talk about trans fucking reading hour, they should be notified and they should be able to pull their kid out or complain. All of this is logical. Section 6. Before administering a student well-being questionnaire or health screening form to a student in kindergarten through grade 3, the school district must provide the questionnaire or health screening form to the parent and obtain the permission of the parent. So what this is protecting is the fact that they hand out questionnaires to kids. How are you feeling today? Are you feeling like the opposite sex? Yeah, and all this type of shit, talking about their different gender and if they're feeling a certain way and all this type of stuff to groom them into thinking that automatically they're not straight. They may not be straight. They might be gay. They might be bi. They might be gender fluid. They might be all this other bullshit. So what this is saying is, again, only through grade 3, kindergarten to grade 3, 4 to 9, they are not allowed to do this. They can start doing this at 9 years old if they're in 4th grade. The parents don't have to get it at that point. To me, that's fucking wild. You should always be informed of this type of shit. If a school is imposing questions about a kid's sexuality to a kid that has not brought it up to them, it should be known to the parents. They should know what's being taught in that sense. I don't know. I think that's a little common, but they only prohibit it to grade 3 to 9 years old. At the oldest, 9. Next section, section 7. Each school district shall adopt procedures for a parent to notify the principal or his or her designee regarding concerns under this paragraph at his or her student's school, and the process for resolving these concerns within 7 calendar days after notification by the parents. So this is bravo. This protects parents who go to school boards and complain about this type of shit and are demonized. This gives them the ability that if little Timmy comes home today and says, hey, Miss Smith gave me a form today that, wanted me to talk about, if I felt like my sex boy, or if I felt more like a girl today, and have I thought about sexual acts and all this type of stuff, and these are things that go on. These are things that go on. And if a parent is sitting there with a 5th grader going, why the fuck are they asking this to my 5th grader? They're allowed to bring it up and say, what is going on here? Why is this being taught? So let's go into subsection A here. At a minimum, the procedures must require that within 30 days after notification by the parent that the concern remains unresolved, the school district must either resolve the concern or provide a statement of the reasons for not resolving the concern. So again, they need to try and resolve the concern within 7 calendar days, but they have up to 30 to fuck with this. Subsection B there. If a concern is not resolved by the school district, a parent may, this is another subsection, I1, request the Commissioner of Education to appoint a special magistrate who is a member of the Florida Bar in good standing and who has at least 5 years experience in administrative law. The special magistrate shall determine the facts relating to the dispute over the school district procedure or practice, consider information provided by the school district, and render a recommended decision for resolution to the State Board of Education within 30 days after receipt of the request by the parent. The State Board of Education must approve or reject a recommended decision at its next regularly scheduled meeting that is more than 7 calendar days and no more than 30 days after the date the recommended decision is transmitted. The cost of the special magistrate shall be borne by the school district. The State Board of Education shall adopt rules, including forms necessary to implement this sub-paragraph. So this, again, puts the ball in the parent's hands. If the school district drags their ass, the parent can request a Commissioner of Education to appoint a special magistrate, and then an outside source, an outside legalese, looks at this and give the decision. The school board can either approve it or reject it, but they have to do it within the next school board meeting. So let's look at the next subsection 2. Bring an action against the school district. A parent may bring an action against the school district to obtain a declaratory judgment that the school district procedure and practice violates this paragraph and seek injunctive relief. A court may award damages and shall award reasonable attorney fees and court costs to a parent who receives declaratory or injunctive relief. So what that says is a parent can then go against it and show how it violated what is being said in this section here. So again, giving the parents the power to fight back where they didn't have it before. Subsection C. Each school district shall adopt policies to notify parents of procedures required under this subparagraph. So again, parents are informed every step of the way what the fuck goes on. Subsection D. Nothing contained in this subparagraph shall be construed to abridge or alter rights of actions or remedies in equity already existing under common law or general law. So again, this paragraph does not supersede common law or general law in terms of the rights of people like board members and shit like that. All right, finally, round this off. Section 2. By June 30th, 2023, Department of Education shall review and update as necessary school counseling frameworks and standards, educator practices, and professional conduct principles, and any other student services personnel guidelines, standards, or frameworks in accordance with the requirements of this Act. Section 3, Act shall take effect July 1st, 2022. So we still have some time before this takes effect. But what didn't you see here? You didn't see once that it doesn't allow a school district member, whether it's a counselor or a teacher, to not say the word gay in their classroom, unless they're in kindergarten or 3rd grade, which is fucking fine. God damn it. Why are we mad about that? Number one, no one should be angry about that. 4 to 9 years old. Keep that in mind. 4 to 9. Young and 4, old and 9. Keep that in mind. They're mad that you cannot mention sexual orientation or gender, whatever the fuck it is. I don't even remember because the wording is so stupid. Sexual orientation or gender, whatever, gender curiousness. I don't even know what the fucking term is at this point, but it just grinds my gears. What these people get so angry and worked up about and the things that they make up, sexual orientation and gender identity. K to kindergarten to third grade, they can't talk about it. They could start talking about it in fourth grade. 9 and 10-year-olds, they could talk to it. They could start teaching whatever they want. They could start their activism at 9 and 10-year-olds. This is allowing the parent to be involved in the kid's education. They need to be informed what's going on. Again, not a bad thing. Not once in here do they prohibit a teacher from being an advocate. They actually encourage it. If they think that the kid's under it, that if the kid refuses, they encourage the kid to talk to the parent, and they encourage a counselor or a teacher to be the advocate. They said they are allowed under this law to facilitate discussion of the issue with the parent. That is verbatim. Facilitate it. They're allowed to do that. This isn't taking away the power of teachers to be mentors, to be advocates for any kids that are curious, questioning, actually gay, actually bi, actually trans, even though trans kids don't exist, but still, they don't stop them from being advocates for them. They don't stop any of them from being mentors. They don't stop this outside of the actual structured setting of teaching in kindergarten through third grade. This isn't a bill prohibiting or taking away homosexuality. This isn't a bill trying to keep kids in the closet like it is being made out to be. This is a bill from stopping grooming. This is a bill stopping sexual abuse. This is a bill stopping pedophilia at a very young age. That's what this bill does. And it is a great bill. It's a bill that protects kids. It's a bill that protects parental rights over their kids, because kids do not have their own autonomy up until they're 18 years old and they're adults. Parents decide everything for these fucking kids. That's just how it is. That's how our society deems it. Whether that needs to change is an argument neither here nor there right now. But overall, that's the crux of it. So it baffles me that this bill was able to be labeled "Don't Say Gay." It is nothing against the gay community. It is nothing against the bi. It is nothing against trans. The LGBTQ community is not attacked in any way. If anything, these kids are protected even more. Because again, if the educator feels that the kid coming out to the parent could cause them to get abused, neglected, abandoned in any sort of way, they're allowed to have them withhold this information. So it's not like they're saying you have to out every kid that comes to you. This bill is not a bad bill at all. There's nothing wrong. I don't think it goes far enough. I think third grade is still far too young. I think fourth grade is still far too young to be teaching these kids. They have no need to learn about sexual orientation or gender identity until they start hitting puberty. It's not necessary. And even then, they should maybe slowly start learning about it because they're extremely impressionable. If you have an activist teacher who is gigantic LGBTQ advocate and is a popular teacher, you're going to have a lot more LGBTQ kids in that school because they are going to go along with whatever the fuck that teacher says. So overall, I hope this shines some light on the bill. It is a 7-page bill, really a 5.5-page bill, because the whole first 2.5 is kind of a synopsis and a lot of legalese and a lot of repeated shit. So go find it. I'm going to post this on the show notes. You can click on it and read it yourself. It is an easy bill to read. It is not a ton of legalese in this bill, and it's less than 7 pages long. Take the time to read the bill, make a decision for yourself. If you can read this bill and still think that it is heavily against the LGBTQ community, then I don't know what to say to you. You're not a serious person. You're a partisan. If this bill came down against the LGBTQ community and prevented in any way them trying to be who they are, I'd be the first to say, leave them the fuck alone. People just want to be people for the most part. Leave them alone. But this doesn't do that. This protects the parents' rights to parent their kids, and it also protects the kids' rights to not be abused by activist teachers and activist counselors. It's a great bill. And if you're a teacher that's up in arms about this, you're probably one of those activists they're trying to prevent from teaching kids, and you should have your fucking teaching certificate looked at. Sorry, this is losing me some friends. I don't care about that because it's true. All right, then. I appreciate everybody for listening. I hope I'm going to continue to do this over and over again. Life comes at you when you're not paid to do this, when this isn't your 9 to 5, when this is your fun hobby because you love doing it. Sometimes things get in the way. And that's just the reality of it. So if you enjoy what I do here, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars. If you are listening on Spotify and iTunes, spread this word of mouth. Tell people this crazy guy just broke down a bill and he's nuts, but he had some points. And if you want to find us on social media, The Alex Cuesta Show, go search for it. You'll find it wherever it is. Hopefully I shall be back tomorrow. And everybody, have a great one.